Alec Hamlin here, and it's another exciting story time. So, in this episode of Story Time, I am going to tell you about how my dad gave me the sex talk. Oh boy. So, basically one day my dad came up to me and he's just like, hey, you and I have to have a talk, which terrified me, absolutely, since my dad was a drunk, and usually him saying, hey, we need to have a talk, usually meant I'm gonna beat the shit out of you for about an hour. So, you know, memories. Um, so basically, we go down to his room, and we're my dad's trying to muscle his way through this talk. Like, it got to this point where I realized, like, oh crap, this is the talk. Um, and my dad just looks at me, and I remember how he starts it off. Right, lights up a cigarette. He's so nervous, and he just. So, sex. They call it rape on the streets, and I remember that in particular. That's literally what he said, and I'm a little kid, I want to say maybe 9 years old, going like, no they don't, Dad. Not at all. And now at this age now, I look back at my dad's childhood, where he grew up in East LA and hardcore parts of LA during the 1960s and 70s, and I realize where he came from. Yes, they unfortunately probably did call it that. It's a charming little insight into my dad's childhood. It's not terrifying at all. So he's still muscling his way through it, and I swear he smokes like half a pack of smokes just trying to tell me this freaking conversation of what sex is, which, by the way, I already knew, because my brother gave me the talk, like, way before this, when he introduced me to porn. Pretty much he just throws on the sex scene in Titanic, and basically me and him are watching it, and he's just like, yeah, so basically, when you're grown up, you and a girl get naked, you guys hug, you put your thing in her, and a baby comes out 9 months later. And that's held up to what I fully believe. That's been the most accurate sex discussion I've ever had. That was right to the point. So anyway, back to my dad. He's awkwardly talking about this, and then I just remember halfway through his fucked up sex talk, he stops, looks at me, and he's just like, I just want you to know that this is just as horrible as it is for you as it is for me. All right, but at least you're even getting a talk. All right, my dad didn't give me a talk. He didn't give me shit. All right, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. We didn't have any sex ed classes back in the day. I was just winging it, and that's how your brother came out. And this goes off onto a just a long hate speech into how his dad was never there for him as a kid, and how horrible his dad was. And then he goes off onto the whole thing of just like, I remember, my dad would take me out on dates that he was having with women who weren't my mom, your grandma. And that was a lot for me to kind of hear within this little anger speech, because I remember that year earlier I just found out that my grandma, Dad's mom, had died of alcohol poisoning. So, this was a lot to kind of take in within the span of a couple months. Okay, Grandma was a drunk and Grandpa was a whore, so we're that family. That's cool. And, I remember my dad just in the middle of him just yelling at his father who's not there. I think he just kind of realizes how off track he's gotten, because he just goes silent, smokes the rest of his cigarette, and I think he just realizes how off track he's gotten, and just like, you know what? He walks over to his little cabinet thing that he had, right? And opens it up, pulls out a DVD, comes over, and puts basically on the table I think it was called Barely Legal of 17. Now, I hadn't seen the first 16, so I was pretty lost at this part of the series. I didn't get attached to characters like my dad probably had, because he probably had watched the other 16. And he puts it on the table and he just says, "Figure it out." And he walks away. And I didn't figure it out. Not for a while. So, yeah. That was my charming little family memory. Like and subscribe.